Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, and welcome back to the craziness of the Call of Duty world in which the Los Angeles Guerrillas just won the most recent major event. But the OpTic guys of course didn't have the weekend they were looking for. They came top 6 at the end of the day. Rambo's explaining some of the reasons behind that, but also the pretty ridiculous practice environment that the teams had to put up with. Very much enjoying your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy the video. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Really upset the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Of course, as the Rokkr say, nice little party this weekend. It was a good time. Of course, look, we will talk about the venue and kind of the practice environment the teams had behind the scenes in a few minutes' time that the OpTic guys weren't so happy with, especially compared to what was happening at Arlington, right, in the previous events we've had so far this season, and the end of the previous season as well. This also, just from the colleague, I thought was pretty incredible. The pick'ems were chalked for all but 8 people. I doubt that all these 8 people got the entire bracket right, but yeah, still 8 people, I guess 0.1% of people who did the pick'ems on the Call of Duty website actually picked the Los Angeles Guerrillas to win Major 2, so fair play if that was one of you guys. Unbelievable scenes. Not sure if you got the bracket right, because I mean, predicting them to lose winners round 1 and go all the way through is just yeah, one of the craziest stories that we've no doubt ever seen in Call of Duty history. This also I thought was pretty cool from GG Breaking Point that was put out right after the games concluded. Turns out Asim actually wasn't the MVP. I think they gave it to Spart, but still, across the board, pretty incredible. First event win, first team to win an event with the sub in the CDL era, hold the CDL S&D win streak at 10, which of course is still ongoing, right, into when we go into Major 3, and I guess going into the Prime Classic is going to be the next event at the start of May. Spart comes in as well. Huke's first event win since CDL Champs 2020. I guess that's also his first kind of LAN win, at least his first ever proper LAN win, because I guess he did win, I forget exactly what it was, maybe it was the Los Angeles home series in Modern Warfare that was on LAN just before things went online. Dallas Empire won that one, I guess, with Huke, but like in terms of a proper 12-team event, this is Huke's first ever win, I guess, on LAN. He had a 1.2, I think it was a 1.24, 1.29, whatever it was in the finals, and then of course Slasher back on top as well, so just unbelievable scene. It doesn't get old, to be honest. Boston Breach, of course, they had a good weekend. They came top 3. Very solid performance. Not, of course, the finish of the tournament they wanted, but started out very strong. Of course, look, you can definitely look at the bracket. They've had the last 2 tourneys to get top 6 and then top 3 and say, well, you know, like maybe they got the easier bracket. And of course, that I think is certainly arguable. Against the top teams, they still do tend to struggle. But I think a lot of teams can look at a squad like Boston and see the fact they've got Capsidel and Nero, 2 guys that weren't even really considered for the Pro League, right? Because, of course, this team came in super last minute. Those guys weren't even really close to being in consideration for actually getting on a Pro League team, and all of a sudden they've got 2 fantastic results back to back. So just does go to show you can put, there's many talented players out there, you put them in the right system, you put them in the right culture with the right teammates, and you can form a, you know, potentially really solid squad, right, which a lot of teams are missing out on. So that's why I would be surprised if many teams don't make roster changes over the coming weeks. This also from Prestinni, so he's going to be competing again starting ASAP. Want to find a team I can stream everything with every day though, trying to be on my grind again. So cool to see. Prestinni, of course, the sub for FaZe, had to sub in for that one series up against OpTic just before Major 2 began, and he's made it relatively clear he wanted to come back into competition, and you know, who knows how that will go in challenges, all this type of good stuff. A pretty cool world champion, of course, Prestinni back in the 2019 days. We'll talk about his FaZe teammates later on today as well. This also just to mention from Chrome, because the Vault class that Spart was using to, of course, fantastic effect. We saw like, well, we talked about it yesterday, might will get banned already. That's kind of up in the air right now. Maybe we'll hear more about it over the coming days, what the pros decide to do. They don't have to hurry these decisions out, and of course, I'm sure they're also hoping that maybe with a month off, effectively, maybe another map will arrive that tends to be viable and they can potentially switch things around. There has been some talk about Berlin Control, because Berlin Control apparently is going to be very viable when the spawns are changed. And I'm not sure they have already been changed, but effectively the defense spawns too far away to defend one of the points at all. But if the defense spawns are slightly closer, then actually Berlin Control could be viable. We certainly want 3 control maps in that game mode. I think that'd be a good one. The pros have time now to test it and see what works, and they've got a fair bit of time to figure things out here. So they don't have to hurry on this front, but this is the class that Spart was using to great effect this weekend. The flash hider seemingly on the muzzle was the difference maker, but yeah, whether the pros will get rid of this, whether they say, okay, nah, it's alright lads, let's keep it in the game, that's another question. I'm sure like Slasher, the GA enforcer, is going to be doing his best to not be GAing this one, right, to kind of counter whatever the other teams might try and say about it. Here we go, the point standings then right now following Major 2. So this season it's looking like this. FaZe, of course, have made back-to-back grand finals. They're here at 180 points, topping the league. OpTic in number 2 with 165. These two teams quite a way ahead of the rest, especially with London having a poor event here. They're only on 130. Boston Breach at 120 right behind them. Then Los Angeles Guerrillas, after winning, they move up to 115. Then quite a significant gap to the rest of the field. So anything can still change here at the bottom, but we are currently halfway through the season in terms of when these points come from, right? Stage 1, Stage 2, we've got Stage 3, Stage 4, then Champs, right? I'm not sure there's any points that come from the Prime Classic, even though there might be. But, you know, still, if Champs was determined now, now, the bottom 4 teams that don't go to champs are Ultra, Rokkr, Subliners, and Legion. Paris Legion you would expect. The other 3 I still think have a decent chance to make it through. Not so convinced about the Rokkr if they don't make changes quickly. And Toronto, of course, have been on a massive downtrend lately as well. But you can see how tight it is here from top 6 down all the way to top 11 effectively. Only 30 points separating all these teams. That can be made up very quickly. Like Guerrillas were down in probably like 8th or something, or 9th or whatever. They've jumped up massively with one tournament weekend where they go crazy and win the whole thing. So things can still change here very quickly indeed. But it does just go to show that like these teams need to turn things around quickly, right? Because now here we are at stage 2. New York have only 40 points the entire season so far. Like, if they don't turn things around quickly, of course they seem to have a solid squad that is capable of doing so. But like, yeah, the pressure is on these teams, right? If you're sitting there in the bottom 4, you've got to really consider what do we do, because we don't have all that much longer to turn the season around. The OpTic guys, of course, then second in the league. They have won an event so far this season. They're heading back to Dallas, as Scump says right here. Not the weekend they were looking for, of course. They came top 4, as Ultra came top 6, sorry. Florida came top 4. The team they lost 3-1. Will come different next major. Trust me about that one. Now, Rambo kind of did his post-major debrief, right? Thought this was pretty good, discussing the games and some of the issues that they seem to face. And I'll show a couple of clips here, one of which he talks about the kind of individual performances that some of the guys actually stepped up this major compared to the previous one, but it was their team play that was really lacking. And the other part of it I thought was even more interesting was the practice rooms the teams had behind the scenes. Back at the Arlington event, which we've used for, 3 out of the last 4 events in Call of Duty, maybe 4 out of the last 5 events actually, previous to this one in Minnesota, excluding champs, I guess, from Los Angeles, but it was stage 4, stage 5, the Kickoff Classic and Major 1 were all done at that Arlington venue. It's massive behind the scenes. Every team effectively, I'm pretty sure, gets their own practice room. That was certainly not the case this weekend. The teams were stuffed into the same rooms where the other teams could effectively hear whatever strategies and vetoes and ideas they were coming up with.
But our performance in general, it's kind of weird to talk about, because I feel like individually, like I feel like all of us, even Ender, like statistically maybe didn't have his best event, but still I feel like individually we all played pretty well. But yeah, I just feel like it didn't feel like we lost this event because of our individual performance. I feel like which is super hard for me to say, because I feel like that's been our kind of like our bread and butter this year, but our team play was just not it. At the first event, obviously the Arlington event, we all have our own rooms. Like, we were the OpTic team and it was our OpTic event, so we had the coolest room, but it's a bigger cube with a little more space. We had a ping pong table, and all the other teams had their own little own PPAs with a door you can shut and talk about. We were sharing a PPA with 4 other teams this event, and I'm sorry, I'm pissed about that. That's just ridiculous. It's frustrating. Like, I feel like we're at a standard. Like, there should be Arlington kind of set the standard on what's expected out of PPAs, and we
So as I say, the Arlington venue in Texas has kind of been the gold standard, right? And it's something that in Call of Duty history, we've really never seen. Or it's been very rare to see an event like the Arlington one. Of course, that was where stage 1 was. It's effectively the OpTic venue. Pretty sure the kickoff was there as well. Stage 4 and stage 5 were both held there last year. And you can see the behind the scenes stuff right here. Every single team pretty much has their own, has their own facility. You can see right here in this kind of Z-Laner episode. This is pretty much what it looks like. I believe every single team gets a room like this to themselves. This is the OpTic one. At this event, they have like a ping pong table and all this type of stuff, so they're kind of enclosed, right? They can talk about whatever they want to talk about. They can talk about vetoes, strategies, ideas, things that the other teams are going to come up with. Not really something that's been the case in previous years, like in the CWL, MLG type days. Not really a venue you would get the access to, right? And of course, the Minnesota event, it was put together relatively last minute. I guess they didn't quite have access to a venue that would have all these capabilities, but I'm pretty sure Hicksy even talked about this on an Eavesdrop podcast with Mack, right? That I think they maybe came in after one of their defeats to Seattle. The guys are frustrated, talking about what went wrong and all this type of stuff, and Paris is sitting there across the other side of this curtain being like, well, these guys are just gonna talk about everything that went wrong in that game, what they should have done differently. I think the Paris guys were like, look, we'll just leave you for 15 minutes to discuss this in your own time. But a little bit of a strange one, right? Of course, the teams, ideally, they have their own room, they can talk about this stuff behind closed doors in their own terms that they want to. But of course, if the other teams are in the rooms as well, then that's far from ideal, especially because I guess before the event they say, okay, these 4 teams here, these 4 teams in this room, like I guess 3 rooms of 4 teams each, and therefore if you were playing against another team in your room, which is possible, then what do, right? So Rambo reckons that's pretty ridiculous, not the way it should be. Adam Pacello actually says here to Sean Collins a couple of days ago that nowhere people are using this as an excuse, right? Vetoes are not being decided live in the venue for matchups hours later. They're using the room to warm up, which is true, but at the same time, it's nice to have your own, you can discuss strategies and vetoes and ideas, and not have to think about the other team on the other side of the curtain hearing exactly what you're saying and taking a note right down of all this type of stuff. So, bit of a strange situation. Not really sure how viable this is to deal with, because I think in previous events, like I'm thinking back to like an Anaheim or a London 2019 or something during the CWL days, the teams would just go outside, like into the parking lot basically, and just they would discuss things there. Whereas, of course, now they have a pretty cool warm-up room, but if it's not to themselves, then it's probably better for them to just to be outside discussing stuff than it would be in that room, because they're using the room to warm up. Maybe they discuss things elsewhere, but Rambo wasn't particularly happy about it. Whether that's something that can realistically be changed or fixed for the Toronto event or the New York event just depends on the venue they have, right? I guess the Arlington venue, like it has their massive main stage and main event hall, but it also, I guess, has, 12 rooms behind the scenes that they can use for practice, which, which is pretty a tough ask, I guess, for a lot of venues to be able to pull something like that off. But I guess some of the teams might be having words with the CDL to say, look, we really need to make this happen in future events if that is possible. But maybe they're kind of getting, maybe they're getting treated a little bit too much or getting spoiled, right, by what the Arlington venue has been able to deliver. Wanted to talk about what else Rambo said, because of course he talked about the teamwork, right, and I thought it was quite interesting the fact that this event, Shotzzy, because I talked last event, they won it, right, the OpTic Major, but there was a lot of talk after the fact that they really didn't play their best. Individually, I think Shotzzy was actually somewhat inconsistent at that event. This event, he was an absolute monster. You look at the KD right here, Shotzzy's got a 1.19, 1.26 in search, 1.13 in control. He was out of control, as was Dashie, of course. Statistically, Illy really had a tough event. Scump was pretty solid as well, but Search and Destroy was very tough for Scump and Illy both, and you can actually see right here in terms of game mode win-loss, just for Major 2, a 1 in 4 in Search and Destroy records. That's not really going to cut it, right? So definitely I think the team play was quite interesting. I honestly think the only time I saw the Stage 1 Search and Destroy OpTic was in those final 4 rounds of the Tuscan Search against Thieves. They really tapped into that kind of Stage 1 OpTic while they were doing. Outside of that, their Search and Destroy was pretty woeful, to be honest. Certainly something they've got to think about and consider as we go forward. Wanted to mention this as well just before we close out the video here, because Salvation's Elite points this out yesterday, that, the CDL was actually claiming some of the clips from Major 2. I don't know why this has started to happen again. Now, firstly, this happens back in the Black Ops 3 clips. This is really frustrating, actually, because there's so many great moments from Black Ops 3. This, of course, pre-CWL. I guess the clips are kind of owned by Activision or MLG Studios or whatever it was that Activision still own. But, like, there's so many good moments from Black Ops 3 that if you put them in a video, like try and make a documentary or montage or whatever, the video gets straight up blocked. I'm pretty sure it's not even that they take the money, it's that they literally just prevent you airing the content at all, which is really annoying for like so many documentary type stuff. And seemingly they've started to claim some of the content here, Salvation's Elite, and to kind of TacticalRab point out, for some of the most recent Major. Like there's a few clips of Major 2. I don't know whether this is coming because maybe it's the main Call of Duty channel that has the content ID system, and because they're co-streaming, some of the content there kind of creates an issue, or whether they've just decided to do this again, because really just is super frustrating and makes no sense. Like if you want to grow your league, it's not like Activision need like the $50 that a 10,000 view video might generate, right? Activision don't need that cash, right? And it's just taking away opportunities for creators to make good stuff, because I want to make some really cool documentaries, but if all of a sudden all the content that comes out of the CDL, if you share any of it on stream, you just lose all the money. It's like, well, it's pointless making it. So I think this has only been affecting a few clips from just Major 2. It hasn't happened at all the last couple of years, really since the CDL's inception, so maybe this is just something that's just happening from now onwards. But I'm also sure that like Zuma, right, on the flanks, I guess he doesn't really need the revenue from the YouTube channel, but I'm sure it's nice. Like if all the flanks start to get hit by demonetization, then I'm sure Zuma isn't going to be happy. So if this continues, it's really frustrating for a lot of content creators. I'm sure we could potentially have some words with the CDL about it, but hopefully this is something that doesn't affect the rest of the season. And yeah, just to finish off with this actually from Eric Olsen, I thought it was a phenomenal little bit of slow motion footage when the Major concluded and Los Angeles Guerrillas walk away with the trophy. But very much intrigued to your thoughts and all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit a like button, tell the YouTube gods it's a good video. I'd just like you should see it as well, and I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you as always, take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.